Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the AI for SMB show, episode 4, here with JD. How's it going, JD?
It's going well. Another
Awesome.
Friday.
On Friday, another Friday. Great week. So much happening in the space. And excited to talk about one of the, I don't know if you'd call this the easiest step that I think a lot of small business owners could take to start incorporating AI, and that is chatbots. So let's kind of do a good conversation here about, what chatbots are, the power that they have, and even some of the changes, because I think what we're going to get into when we get into how powerful they can be is that a lot of this stuff wasn't true 3, 4, or 5 months ago, right? So they're changing very quickly. And so I think this will be a great one for people to really see what's possible, and that while difficult for a non-technical person to incorporate, some of the stuff we're going to talk about for people like us who are doing this every day, it's actually not that hard to build something that's going to sound as crazy powerful as what is possible. It's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, and I think with chatbots, maybe a way to start it off is everybody thinks of like a chatbot as it's just the little bubble in the right corner, right or left corner, right? And you're just talking with it. And while that's true, and I think the name is like a little deceiving, it can be so much more, right? You can actually have more interactions with it. You can connect different kinds of data with it. It's great for customer support, but it can turn into more things and more generative content, or collect more content than before. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just talk about that real quick, kind of the history of maybe where small business owner, what they're thinking about when we say chatbot, right? So chatbot's been around for, I don't know what, probably 15 years at this point, a long time. And so what probably most business owners are still using, right? Which is the traditional chatbot, which is it can pull specific links or answers that you've maybe given it. Like if somebody asks this exact question, give them this exact answer, or pull up this specific link that I've told you in advance. And that's basically all they do. Or of course you can get a human involved, right? So what we're talking about here is that still can be valuable having a human involved, but what we're talking about is upgrading from the old model of, it'll pull a specific link that I told it to in advance, versus it can leverage the power of AI to know exactly what somebody wants and pull things. And well, we'll get into what it can do. But so that's what probably most business owners have, is really basic. And honestly, I know as a user, for me, those basic chatbots, if a human doesn't come on, they're actually really bad, because they can be frustrating to use, because most of the time they won't pull something relevant, or it'll be like, oh, check out this website that it's going to take you 15 minutes to read everything. It's a bad customer experience. And so the fact that now we have AI ones that can, massively improve that, businesses need to start leveraging these like now, because you do not want to be giving your customers a bad experience, and you don't have to anymore, right?
yeah, and I think you also talked about the fact that it's a way to interact with the human. That's costly, right? And so having another human on this phone, it's either your time if you're a small business, or you have to farm that out to a third party and pay. So I think what's interesting is when you start talking about the ways that you can pull information now with AI, there's this thing called RAG, which is the simplest way to think of it is like retrieval. So when you're going out and you're pulling certain information, before it had to be a specific link. Now this is kind of taking the context of a PDF or your website, like having the HTML pulled in there, and actually analyzing it and saying, I found this bit of information somewhere in context, and I'm displaying it to the user. So to put that in like the simplest form is, it's learning from the data itself and pulling that information from, for instance, a PDF is the simplest way to think about it.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. The RAG, which is, what does that stand for? Retrieval?
Augmented Generation.
Augmented Generation. So this is a really big deal. Again, it's very kind of techy, but in terms of what it can do on the front end for you or your users is a really big deal. So maybe let's talk about, for those who are probably a little advanced, maybe they have an AI chatbot that they got within the last, year and a half. So a simple AI chatbot, which again is still way, way better than the traditional form, but still not where it's possible to go today, which we'll get into in a minute. So the medium would be just the AI chatbot that can act like ChatGPT for you, right? So maybe, like you said, maybe it knows your website. Maybe there is a thing called a knowledge base, which does add a big lever here, which is you can teach it to know something. Maybe you have a big long document about your business. You could just upload it, right? And then it will know that information, your website. And then when somebody goes and asks and says, hey, how much does your product cost? It's going to go to your pricing page, read that it's $9 a month, and then it's going to come back and say, hey, our pricing is $9 a month in human English, right? It doesn't just pull back the image or like say the word $9. It actually will talk like a person, explain, hey, it's, our product is $9. And this is already very valuable.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to understand it would be because it's not going out and live scraping your website. It's actually like you've saved that to the website, right? To the chatbot. So think about if you were to scan your FAQ page or download a PDF with your frequently asked questions and just upload that to a chatbot. That would be like the simplest form of being able to ask questions without it having to be very specific and have it come back sounding like a human. So you could ask it questions like a human and it would answer back as a human instead of being like, I know I need to find this specific question about what is my pricing and go look that up. It kind of is able to retrieve that on the fly almost. So.
Okay. So yes, that makes a lot of sense. The obvious negative of this, and again, where we're taking this is that it scans your website or checking your PDF, but that's just a one-time thing. So that's all it knows. So if you're making updates to your website, unless you go back in and say, hey, rescan my website, my PDF has been updated. Now you got to go upload the PDF again. And again, it's not impossible. It's just most people are not going to be thinking about this. They're going to forget.
Right. Yeah. Like you want to make sure that your information's up to sync, right? Like it's up to date. And so do you really want to update that PDF every single time, or do you really want to go out and run a scrape of your website? Not really. You want to automate that process. So there's ways to do like automated scraping and then uploading that information for your website. Another way to think about this, though, is you can kind of connect it to a database. So there's kind of two different limitations with uploading, whether it's website information or even like a PDF, is there's a context limit, right? The AI can only take so much data and find relevant data well at a large amount. Like the smaller that data set is, the better. And this is like where tools come in, because you can actually go out to your database and find the information in an API call. Like we've run into a problem where there was something like we had 1 million records, and that to pull all of that information in context, it was really labor intensive for the AI, really costly. And instead we can use a tool, was what it's tools or functions. You can find it on like the OpenAI documentation, but it's the ability to basically explain to ChatGPT how to connect to an outside party. So like if you know APIs, then connect to an API, connect to a database. Either send information or get information. So.
Yeah, so I think you're kind of jumping in here, which is awesome, to level 3 of chatbots, right? So just to rewind a little bit. So level 1 is just, basically it only can pull hyper specific links or information that you preset and know nothing else other than that, which is basically bad. Then what most people are using today, if you check most chatbots on a website that are AI, all they can do is like answer questions like a human about the website, right? Because they scrape the website. Maybe they have a PDF in there. That's about the extent of what most people have done. Again, much more valuable than the version 1, relatively basic compared to what is possible. And so really I'm calling it this, version 3 is what you've already alluded to a little bit, which is this concept of functions or tools. There's a third term, I think, that some companies call. Do you remember what that other one was?
You mentioned like natural forms, or like,
well, natural forms. That's yeah.
I like the tooling side of things is I don't want to get too technical right away. So I would say like just leave it at tools and functions.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the industry is calling them.
Yeah. Okay.
Then you basically write, we call it a specification that allows the AI to understand how to go out and call different information and pull that
Hmm.
information from a live source.
Yeah. So I think I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this to people who are not technical is to think that what functions and tools does is it allows the chatbot to almost become an interactive app with tons of potential applications that are really kind of more imagination based than just like, oh, it will chat back and forth. Now it's like, hey, what tool do I want to integrate? Oh, I want it to do this. I want it to do this. And it can do an unbelievable amount of things. And this is what we've been exploring and working on and building these last couple months now that this tooling is available. And it's just absolutely incredible what is possible. Again, what you just mentioned of the million records. I mean, do people realize to think of an Excel spreadsheet that you have to scroll down to number 1 million? Like that's crazy. And yet because of I guess you could say we even tried to do it the version 2 way of just like, hey, we'll just upload an Excel spreadsheet with 1 million records. It can't handle that, right? So version 2 way, that's not possible. Now with version 3, with functions and tools, again, you can explain the technicals, but you're basically able to make a call out to say this database where these million records are, go read that and then bring it back to the chat. And it's an incredible functionality just with that one simple version that we've actually done that with.
Yeah, I think like an easy way to kind of understand it is the AI doesn't know any like real time data. So if I was to ask the AI, what's the weather like today? It would have no idea. But if I told it, hey, when someone asks what the weather is, I want you to go out to this site and pull back what the weather information is based on a zip code, then it would actually be able to do that and be like, it's sunny out today with chance for rain, whatever, based on your zip code. The other cool thing is it could know the city and then just define what that city is. So you could say Detroit, Michigan, and it would know the zip code for that and then send it off. So what's really interesting is that it can still, you don't have to be as specific as you normally would, like with a form where you're saying, I know I need a name here, I need a last name here, I need an email address here, and I need a message here. And instead you could just be like, tell me a little bit about what you're looking for from our company. And the you'd start interacting with the chatbot, and the chatbot would be able to recognize like, oh, well, I still need your name. Let me ask you for your name, right? That's where we start talking about the natural
Yes.
flow of this. And then we can take that information that's accumulated through a conversation instead of a form field. And the AI is smart enough to then take that data and essentially package it up the same way that you would fill out the form and send it somewhere else.
Yeah. And this is just one of many things that people should be thinking about as far as chatbots in terms of lead generation, right? How to capture a potential lead's information. Again, these chatbots can do forms, like literal forms. Hey, put your name in here, put this in here. You can do that too. But this natural language form is so much better from a user experience from your potential clients using it, because it just doesn't feel this like robotic force nature. So the ability for it to just have a natural conversation and then know, okay, this was his name, this is his email, this is his, whatever it is that you've, pre-told it in advance. And then again, coming back to what you said about the sending information back and forth. So just to give an example of what you could do with this is, okay, so the natural conversation gets name, email, whatever else. That information is then sent to your sales CRM. And now you've got them set up on some sort of drip campaign that automatically starts. So now you can see how all of this can happen without you as the business owner or somebody on your team having to do anything. And now you've got somebody filtering through your sales process and you haven't done a thing. And that's just incredible. Without that fear of somebody like, oh, I see a form, I'll screw this. I don't want to feel. I do that all the time. I see a chatbot. I'm like, oh, they want a bunch of information. I just click off it, right? Where now that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, you could, the interesting part is like, there's even the voice enabled side of this, right? So let's say that even for accessibility, wanted to just have a conversation with the chatbot just through the web, you could do that. You could even have it, the chatbot, like ask, oh, do you want to speak to someone? Then send them either a link or maybe like a little microphone bubble or whatever to interact with, and act as if it's calling a business and actually call a legitimate number, and then still be talking to an AI, but having a voice conversation with the AI. So you could go from a chatbot to a voice AI bot, all within the same cycle without ever even leaving your computer.
Yeah. I mean, this is just incredibly powerful. I mean, when you think of my head goes to, say, home services businesses, which may be some of our listeners. You own a roofing company, a cleaning company, a plumbing company, and when everybody's busy, right? Maybe your secretary called in sick. Maybe you're the plumber yourself, and you just answer the phone. And so when you're on the job, you don't answer the phone. To have it so where somebody can talk via text on your chatbot on your website, or talk to it's basically still your chatbot, but it's an AI that they're speaking to on their phone or on the computer. So the chatbot can even call them, literally like dial the phone and call them just like you would, have the conversation in the exact form and style that you want, capture that information. Again, same with the natural language to pull in their email and their information. And then that's where the automations you can have on another platform that kick in that say, hey, text me if somebody were to say emergency or something like that. I want to text because I know I can charge them more and go out and do that.
Right. And before,
Yeah.
like, especially let's use the plumber example or like a roofing example, right? There's definitely a scenario that you have no control over if a pipe bursts, or there's some damage done to the roof through like a storm or whatever, and you're communicating with like the plumber, and you want the chatbot to assess, like, is this a real emergency, because it's after hours for me, for the human, and kind of put them through like a questionnaire as if you're talking back and forth, and recognize like this absolutely is something that needs to get fixed immediately based on the severity of it, and to have a conversation either through the web or on the phone, and then collect all that information and send it to the human. Whether, let's say that you're a plumbing company, if you have multiple different plumbers that are on call, you could actually have the AI be deterministic of which plumber this is going to go to because of how close they are, what time of day or night it is. Determine the schedule, send that information to that particular plumber, and then they could be on the way faster, than trying to go through dispatch, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. This is just incredibly powerful. And I think one of the key use cases, obviously, here with when it comes to the AI voice or the chatbot, and like you said, determining without having to use a human to determine, is this legit? Do we need to jump on it or not? Is any of these the emergency services type businesses, things like restoration contractors, businesses like that, where they can essentially, they already are kind of 24/7 businesses, but obviously I know they have tons of staffing challenges, and or like you said, the cost to have overseas staff managing this stuff. You can bring that cost down significantly while potentially having a better outcome, because the AI agent on the phone is going to speak in perfect English, as opposed to maybe the overseas staff don't, and that frustrates customers, or your staff calling in sick who are in the US. And so it kind of solves all of those problems, and then some, when it comes to what it does with that information.
Right. And
Yeah.
the cool thing is that, like, when you start talking about, you kind of mentioned like level 3 for chatbots, whether they be voice or text. At the end of the day, they're all text, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
And then, but with level 3 in the tooling, it works the same way, whether it's a voice chat or like a text based chat. It's still doing the exact same thing. It's just doing it behind the scenes in the background. We've even seen things where you can have multiple different chatbots essentially kind of like take over for one or the other. Maybe you have a chatbot that starts off as like the welcoming agent, and then it gets to a certain point and it realizes, oh, this is an emergency. I need to pass it off to the dispatch agent. it's still all AI. You just have different AIs that are specific to the task that you're trying to complete at hand. So this might even be going into, I guess, like level
Hmm.
4, but
Hmm.
having multiple different chatbots work together through a single interface, right? The user is never leaving. It's still the same simplified uh, user experience. It's just you're changing tasks and expertise on the fly behind the scenes.
When that's actually a great point. And again, getting into the AI agents and, where you can have multiple agents working together and everything. We kind of talked about that last episode, which is super interesting. In this specific case, when you're saying somebody's in the chat chatting, and then they find out that the AI finds out, okay, this needs the serious emergency agent. Does the user even know that they were changed to another? They don't know at all, right? It's all
Yep.
feels like nothing has changed to the user. It's just the back end is deciding who's best to handle this, and the handoff again is instant. You can almost think about it as how has this worked in the past with humans, right? It's like you answer, the secretary says, oh, okay, what are you looking for? Sales, service, this. And I go, okay, great, I'll get you over to sales. And then you sit there and wait for 6 minutes on the phone. Then
Mhm.
they answer, and then it's actually the wrong person. Like, oh no, you need to go somewhere. All that nonsense. Now it's kind of similar, except it works perfectly 100% of the time, instantly, and the user doesn't know. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, it the way I look at it is, in the terms you're going to kind of hear, is like we've talked about VAPI before. Like, so they introduced this thing around like squads, or when you start talking about like agents, you'll hear multi agents. It's the way to think about it is the user doesn't know that they're being handed off. You're still talking to the same interface, but the fact is that the behind the scenes, all you're really doing is changing the prompt that is powering this, or the data set that is your knowledge base, right? So you may change from your FAQs PDF to your emergency dispatch PDF, so that you know, and then say like, oh, I know who's on call because in my database Bob is always available at this time, and he is in I don't the Detroit area zip code, right? So really, you're just transitioning from FAQs to emergency dispatch, and then you can transfer back and be like, okay, well, do you need to book an appointment? Oh, that's the booking agent, right? And they're all just essentially a different prompt and a different data set.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Let's actually talk about that, because I think that's one of the other killer use cases of this. Again, whether it's over the phone or in the chat bot. By the way, I'm glad, I like the way you said that. Of it's really the same thing on the back end. The only difference, so that people understand, when you think of, hey, an AI agent on the phone that's sounds like a human talking to somebody, all it's doing is the text is being created just like it is in a chatbot. It's just then there's an additional step where the voice is basically just reading that text, right? Is that a way to put it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's like two different AIs that are going on in that. And the first one is speech recognition, and then the second one, which it's probably the same one in this. You'll have recognition and then transcription, and then you have your AI that is actually doing like the large language model processing of that information. So
Hmm.
the prompt itself. Right? And
Okay.
so, like with VAPI specifically, you have almost like two different AI vendors. You'd have like 11 Labs we've talked about, and then you'd have like OpenAI. Those would be the two AIs that you're interfacing with. One for voice, one um, for text. You could technically use OpenAI for both because it's a multi-model, but you have the ability to kind of pick and choose.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that's awesome. So yeah, let's talk about a couple other of the cool things that can be done in a chatbot. One of the ones that I think is the most impactful, again, for these home services type of business, or really any type probably, is the ability to schedule from them, right? Again, when you think of the retrieval nature of the chatbot, can just go look at your calendar, right? And say, okay, when are you available? So when somebody says, hey, I want to come, I'd like you to come clean my house on Thursday, the AI can go look at your calendar. And this is what's the difference between version 2 and version 3, right? Version 2, where you're manually, everything you upload only gets uploaded once. How would you do that with your calendar, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense unless you were uploading your schedule every day. Like, it just doesn't even make sense. You just couldn't do it. Now, it can just check your calendar wherever your calendar already is. right? And say, oh, okay, yeah, I see you are available. You set the parameters, 9 to 5. They're asking for 3 o'clock. I don't see anything there. Sure, Mr. Smith, we can book you for 3 o'clock, right? And this can all be set via your parameters. And I think this is extremely powerful because again, you don't need a person. People can just book it super easily like this and have that conversation. Again, same thing over voice. The ability to over voice is incredibly powerful as well.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but it'll set the notification, and then you're already in your system, right? So it'll trigger your email for follow up. It'll um, send any notifications that it needs to in the future. The other thing to think about it too is like we as humans tend to have like writer's block, right? When you ask someone what their problem is and just give them a blank canvas input field, they don't really know what to talk about. It might just be like, I have a few things here, and you send and you forget about it. What's cool about the AI portion of this is not only is it checking your calendar, but it could probably be finding out more information about what is the problem, and maybe make suggestions based on that. Oh, well, I recognize that you're having this problem. Have you thought about doing this? And give helpful suggestions as it's trying to book at the same time, to really give uh, your business the ability to really find what the problem is, and assess it in a more timely fashion, so that you can get the job done, and move on to the next one. So
Yeah, no, again, you just hit on another insanely valuable aspect of this, which again is highly dependent on whatever your business is and what your needs and desires are, but the ability to not just book it, but to know why, to maybe gather information that you want to put in the calendar. Maybe, like you said, maybe it's actually booking people further out, right? Maybe you're a restoration contractor and you're super busy and you're like, hey, unless this is an absolute emergency, let's book them out further away. Maybe dentist, same kind of thing. So that again, the power here of it's combining these multitude of things, right? Like probably just booking somewhere wasn't a big deal in and of itself, but now when you add the natural language aspect and the combination of the intelligence to think through scenarios is really where the game changer aspect is.
it could even, if we go back to like and I'm not a plumber, and I'm not like handy at all. So, but like, if let's say you needed a specific tool, right? And either that tool was being used on a different job at a different location, or maybe you needed to buy this tool, and as you were like assessing what the client actually needs done to, let's just say, their home, since there's a bunch of different things that could be done, you could actually figure out what that needs to be done, and either backlog a piece of equipment, or tool, or etc., so that when you get to that job, you already have like what you need, because you collected information from the client up front, and potentially ordered that in advance, right? Like, so you're coming
Absolutely.
prepared for the job.
Totally. I mean, absolutely. There's so much potential here, and I think another way to think about this too, when we talk about functions and tools, are you can have custom ones, right? This isn't like, oh, well, in the system it says we connect to Google Calendar and HubSpot and these 4 or 5 things. You can actually make your own. So that, I mean, again, the possibilities are endless because it's custom. You can do whatever you want. And this is where, I always tell people, so much of what AI has changed, especially for the way non-technical business owners should be thinking about this, is right now, how to leverage AI with these kinds of tools is an imagination problem. Like, you really need to understand the base layer of what's possible, which if they listen to this episode, they just learned, and then think, okay, now I know that these chatbots are able to build tools to go out and do tasks, retrieve information. What could I use that for? Right? How could I think about this and leverage it myself in my business, in my personal situation?
I just want to clarify one thing. Like, the chatbot's not going out and building the tools; it's just accessing the tools,
That's what
right?
I meant. That's what
So,
I meant.
but those tools, like you mentioned, can either be pre-built, like you mentioned, like Google Drive or the calendar or whatever, or like you can just build your own tool. And really, building your own tool is a lot of the same development that you're already doing for your website. You're already doing when you connect to like the Facebook API, right? All of those, that uh, communication back and forth, is a predetermined thing. So like a lot of developers already know how to do that, and so building a custom tool is essentially just already interacting with the same database that you've already been interacting with on your website. So the things that are powering your website now can be extended to become a tool for your chatbot.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I would urge anybody, one of the things, especially on my end, that I'm most interested in is to talk to more business owners about what it is that they deal with, right? And to think through, especially in my case, because I have a deep understanding of the possibilities here, because we do it every day. Give me, what I would tell business owners, give me what you're doing every day. Like, show me your systems, tell me what you're trying to do, tell me what's not working well. And then and with your help too, of course, can like put together, okay, here is a potential solution, right? Here is how you could solve that problem by leveraging these tools we have. But I can't know that without knowing what these business owners are going through. Like, of course, I know some of the businesses that I've been involved in, which it makes it easier for me to think through what we can build to solve it. But again, hearing from others and their niche is pretty valuable. And I would also say, again, for people listening to this who maybe are in a specific industry, to think, if you're listening to this right now, you're very early to AI and what's possible. You could be the first person in your industry to think this through and try to solve these problems. And what is the power of that in your industry, to be the person who was able to leverage AI to solve some problem that nobody's been able to solve in your industry? Or really, instead of thinking it like it's not solved right now, just that how could you streamline it and say, hey, the thing that we're doing now that's taking 4 hours, now I got it down to 10 minutes. That would be very powerful in many ways, financial, social, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, even like the simplest form I can think of is I want to save myself 30 seconds. And by saving myself 30 seconds, I don't even want to have to think about something. I want to remove that and just think and have AI handle it, right? When you do the action of like marking down on a calendar to fill this in and things like that, that is taking time away from you. And so same thing with like doing a pre-check of, is this job right for me or right for someone else? If you could alleviate that with AI, that to me is the streamlining, the automations that you're putting into place of giving yourself time back, right? That's really what we're trying to solve and have a better user experience on the other end.
That's right. Better for the users. And the stuff that is being automated in the way that we're discussing is the monotonous stuff that nobody wants to do, right? So it's the part, most jobs have kind of the things people like to do part of it, and the thing you don't like. Most of what AI is doing is the stuff people don't like to do. So it's even better because, of course, if you're doing less of what you don't want to do, you're probably going to end up doing more of what you actually like to do. And so not only is that good for the business owners listening, but probably your employees as well, right? They don't want to be doing a lot of this stuff. It's really boring to do this over and over, right? So help them automate it so they can focus on the customer interactions that generate sales or win over your current clients to keep them renewing over and over.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this is another great one, JD. Thanks for all your insights. And again, if anybody wants to just chat about AI, has some ideas, wants to know how they can leverage this kind of stuff, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to chat and share with anybody. Otherwise, go to our website, AI4SMBs.co. We've got a bunch of good stuff on there. And looking forward to the next one, JD.